This video is all about how to become a life coach. Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Jenkins. I'm a professional psychologist, and the bulk of my practice currently is training and certifying life coaches. I've learned a little bit about what it takes. I'm going to share with you 7 crucial clarities that every life coach needs to consider as they launch into this exciting field. Life coaching is a really exciting industry, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of good for their fellow humans on the planet through what they are able to do as a life coach. Are you feeling called to do this? Let's talk about those 7 clarities, and I've got a tool for you to follow along. So go to the URL on the screen, drpauljenkins.com/practitioner quiz. This is where I've put together for you a quiz that summarizes these 7 clarities that we'll be talking about on today's video. As we go through these 7 clarities, follow along in the quiz and answer according to where you are in this journey. At the end, you'll get a summary of your responses and maybe some of what your next steps could be. So let's jump into that first clarity. Why? Why do you want to do this? And let's be clear about one other thing. If you want to do it for the money, you're probably on the wrong video. Now, don't get me wrong, you can make a good living doing coaching. But if that is your primary motivation for coming into the field, you're going to run into some very predictable pitfalls that will get in your way. Most people who are successfully doing this feel called to do it. Do you feel that? It's like there's some kind of a higher purpose that you're being called to, a way that you can create value for your fellow human beings at a higher level than what you've been doing. If you feel the calling, that becomes your why. I've been at this for 3 decades now as a professional psychologist turned coach. The reason I switched over to coaching is because I could see that there were a lot of people who could benefit from the principles that I was using in my traditional psychotherapy practice, but they weren't signing up for therapy because they didn't have a diagnosis or they didn't want people to think that they had problems. Well, we all have problems, and unfortunately the term psychotherapy sounds a little like therapy for psychos, and people tend to avoid that. It's unfortunate because those principles are powerful, and I know that these principles save lives. I was listening to Dr. Sanjay Gupta give a speech at a Bravenel Hall in Salt Lake City. And he's a brilliant neurosurgeon who's also a correspondent for CNN. And during the Q&A, somebody asked him, Dr. Gupta, what is the most disturbing thing that you've ever seen? That's a big question for someone who's going into earthquakes and hurricanes and reporting back on these humanitarian issues. But he didn't even hesitate. He said it's the unnecessary death. And then he clarified, look, we get it. People are going to die in a hurricane. But what's tragic is people who die after the fact because they don't have access to water and food and medical supplies, the things that they need to survive. But the disturbing part is that all of those things exist in containers, on ships, in the port, on the island, but there's no distribution process to get it out to them. I realized when he said that I, in my practice as a professional psychologist, have discovered and developed models that save lives. How are we going to get those out to the people who really need them? That's why I switched over to coaching. That's why I provide a certification for positivity practitioners to get these principles into the hearts and hands and lives of those who desperately need it. That's my why. I share my why with you because I'm inviting you to consider yours. Why are you doing this? That's the first consideration. That quiz that I invited you to take is going to ask you, how clear are you about your why? Take a moment to fill that out. Now let's go to number 2. Who? Who do you serve? Now, if you're like me, and you're probably a little like me because, well, here you are. You want to help everybody. This has been one of my challenges to overcome, because as long as we want to help everybody, we have a really hard time coming up with marketing messages that apply to everybody. So we have to get clear about who it is that we can uniquely serve. I would invite you to define your who. We call it an avatar when I'm doing coach training and certification. An avatar is a person that you make up, but you make them up as real as you can. How old are they? What gender are they? What's their family dynamic? Where do they live? Where do they shop? What are their interests? Give them a name. Get as clear as you can about who it is that you serve. And this avatar represents a group of people that are like your avatar. This is a very powerful exercise that you can do as you become clear. Give yourself a rating on the quiz as to how clear you are about who you can serve. And let's move on to what. This is clarity number 3. What is my message? What is it that I can do for those people? For the who that you already identified. You might already have a program or a model that you're ready to share with people. If you don't, that's okay. But on the quiz, just mark how clear you are about what it is that you're bringing. This is where I can comment a little more about that quiz, because there are no right or wrong answers here. It's just about helping you become clear about these 7 different areas. And this will help to illuminate what you get to work on as you move forward. So let's move on to number 4. When? When is the right time for me to launch my services? Or if you've already launched, when is the right time for me to launch my next product or service or marketing channel? This is one of the clarities, by the way, where we get in our way all the time. Because we tell ourselves, we come up with this story in our head that I will do it when I've completed this or that. Or once I've done this, then I can do that. It can be a trap. And I'm not sure we ever feel completely ready. While we're on this clarity, I also want to acknowledge that there are reasons and seasons. The seasons in our life represent different times when our focus may shift from this relationship to that relationship. One of our certified positivity practitioners in my practice, Live on Purpose, was taking some time off from her coaching business as she had a new baby. Now, not everybody is going to take time off for the same reasons, but for her, that was a season in her life that deserved a little bit more of her attention. And now, as her child is a little older and doesn't need quite as much attention from mom, she can turn some of her focus back to her coaching business. And I share this with you as an example of a season. I think we get to honor the seasons of our life and make sure that the reasons don't become excuses. So how clear are you about when? Mark it down on your quiz. If you haven't been following along or you want to catch up, go to the URL on the screen right now, drpauljenkins.com/practitioner-quiz, and get caught up. Follow along with us so that you can get the results at the end. Where will I offer my services? You know, we live in a digital age, and most coaching now is done right here, online, or on Zoom, or in virtual meetings. Most of my clientele does not live within reach of my physical office, but I do still have a physical office. And I know some people who are practicing coaches who only see people face to face. So they work primarily within their community and with people who are within physical reach. It's not a huge question to answer, but it's one that you will need to answer. Where am I going to do that? Now, a little note about that too. Virtual offices are still offices. Some people just think they turn on a camera and they're good to go. And technically that's true. But I've noticed a real difference with some of the coaches who are haphazardly just turning on a camera anywhere versus those who have taken a little time to set up an environment that looks professional and that gives some credibility to the business that they're operating there. So get clear about where. Mark it on your quiz. Clarity number 6 is how. How am I going to work with my clients? How am I going to market my business? How am I going to sell my products and services? All right, now this one can become overwhelming. Don't let it overwhelm you. Just realize this is something that we need some clarity on. How clear are you about how you're actually going to pull this off? Just a little note about this one. You don't have to do this alone. There are so many people who have experience and ideas and proven methods that you can emulate. This is one of the reasons that I have hired some of the coaches that I've hired to work with me, because I didn't know how to do this. I saw them doing it, and so I hired them to show me how to do it. Coaches need coaches. We could probably do a whole video on that, but let's just clarify now. Let's hone in on how clear you are about your how. Put it on your quiz. Now, the last clarity is the one that you absolutely need to keep you out of jail. Now, am I overstating that? No, I'm not. Ethics. Are you clear about the ethics and the limitations and the restrictions to what you can do as a coach? I emphasize this because one of the first people that I met when coaching was just becoming a thing, and this is probably 20 years ago, one of the first people I met who was really getting active in my community in coaching went to jail. And she went to jail because she was convicted of practicing without a license. Well, practicing what? Coaching doesn't require a license. Therapy does. And she had failed to make a distinction between what she was doing and what her clients thought was therapy. This has to do with the ethics of practicing as a coach. Know what the limitations are. Find out what it is you can do and you can't do according to the law in the jurisdiction where you live. How clear are you about the ethics? That's what you're going to put on the quiz. Now, obviously, we can't get into all of the details of all of these clarities, but hopefully this gives you a little idea of what you get to be thinking about. If you've followed along on the quiz, click submit and get your results. It will tell you where you are in that journey and maybe give you some ideas about what is next. I am honored to be on your team and hope that I can be of further assistance to you as you move down that path. Thanks for watching.